shadows are calling, the curtain is drawn. How far we've fallen, I'm out on the run. Live in the violence, die by the sword. Deep in the fire, that's where darkness is born.
Hello, everyone. Today I am hopping on the mic to share a case that's still unfolding. Details are emerging, investigations are ongoing, but what we do know is devastating. This is a double homicide and suicide out of Ohio involving two women whose lives were stolen and the alleged perpetrator, now also deceased. All three individuals were connected through Wright-Patt Air Force Base in Greene County, Ohio. Two civilian contractors, and one active duty service member. We'll begin by honoring the lives of the two women at the center of this tragedy. Then we'll walk through the timeline of events that unfolded 1 week ago on October 25th. I'll share what's been confirmed, what remains speculative, and what the community is still grappling with in real time. Jaymee Prichard was a 33-year-old mother of three. From everything I've gathered, she was successful, kind, and deeply devoted to her children. Her Christian faith was a cornerstone of her life, and her social media reflects a sweet, Midwestern young woman, blonde, fresh-faced, always smiling, and not just smiling. Jaymee had one of those Julia Roberts-esque smiles, just big, expressive, and full of warmth, like it took up her whole face in a good way. When she smiled, it wasn't just her mouth, it was her whole entire body. That kind of megawatt joy that made you feel like you were in on something good. She was aesthetically a very beautiful young woman. Now, Jaymee met the young man who would become her husband in 2011 when she was around 19, or at least that's when Jaymee maiden name Rock and Jacob Prichard became Facebook official. The photos show a young couple in love. They were traveling together. There was an engagement in Paris in 2013, and their first child, a little girl, came in 2014. They would have their official wedding with their sweet little girl with them later in 2018. And Jaymee was one of those women who seemed born for motherhood. She took to it like a duck to water. It was everything to her. You could see it in every one of her social media posts, just every photo, scrolling her Facebook. It was clear. Being a mom wasn't just something she did, it was who she was. But Jaymee wasn't just balancing motherhood and a career, she was excelling. She earned her undergraduate degree from Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, and she went on to pursue a master's in finance. She and Jacob welcomed two more children after their first, and Jaymee somehow managed it all, raising three kids, continuing higher education, and working in financial management as a civilian at Wright-Patt Air Force Base. And that wasn't all. Jaymee and Jacob also ran a small side business together, a photo booth company called Picture Perfect Entertainment. I believe Jacob originally started it with his brother, but Jaymee was actively involved in running it. And if you've ever been to a wedding or a bar with one of those little photo booths, the kind that prints out strips of you and your friends being goofy and adorable, you've seen the kind of joy they help create. Those booths are everywhere now. My little girl loves going in them and getting pictures, and Jaymee helped bring that joy to others while juggling everything else in her life. She was parenting three children, pursuing higher education, holding a high-level job at Wright-Patt, and building a business platform. This couple also had an LLC. It was called Servants to the Crown of Thorns, and that tells me something else about them. It tells me that their lives were steeped in faith. If you're not familiar with Christianity, the crown of thorns refers to the one placed on Jesus' head before his crucifixion. It's a symbol of sacrifice, devotion, and deep spiritual conviction. So Jaymee's life was full of love, purpose, and faith. She was the kind of woman who deserved safety, joy, and the chance to grow old surrounded by the people she loved. And yet what happened next was a heinous act that no one deserved. Least of all, someone like Jaymee. Now, as for Jacob Prichard, look, I'm not going to say much more about him right now. I gave you the basics and I have several thoughts and we'll get to those. but I want to choose to center on the victims of this crime, and we'll circle back to Jacob briefly later. But right now, I want to shift focus from Jaymee Prichard to the second victim in this case, a truly remarkable human being, a young woman who, in just 25 years, had already accomplished so much and who had so much more ahead of her. Her name was Jaime Sue Gustitus. And yeah, I know, two Jamies in one case, that's tricky. So to keep things clear, I'll refer to Jaymee Prichard as wife Jaymee, and I'm going to call Jaime Gustitus Jaime Sue. Jaime Sue was born in February of 2000. Geez, that's the year I graduated high school, so a baby. Jaymee was born February 17th of 2000 in Farmington Hills, Michigan, and she grew up in the nearby town of Novi. And from the start, she was a standout. She graduated with honors from Novi High School in 2018, where she was a varsity catcher and a team captain for the Novi Wildcats. Her academic, athletic, and community achievements earned her a nomination to the United States Air Force Academy by the Honorable Dave Trott. That's incredible. Jaymee accepted that nomination and she soared. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Operations Research from the Air Force Academy, then completed pilot training at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi. In 2021, she earned her private pilot's license. She later pursued her Master of Science in Operations Research at U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology. Wow. And she went on to serve at Wright-Patt Air Force Base as an operations analyst specializing in mathematical and quantitative modeling. And that's just one part of who Jaymee was. To her family, Jaime Sue was a thrill-seeking, adventure-loving, deeply enthusiastic young woman who lived for new experiences, new foods, and new memories. They cherished moments of skydiving with her, rafting, ziplining, going to theme parks. Jaime Sue packed joy into every corner of her life. And she only lived to be 25, but from the way her family described her, it's clear that she lived more life in those 25 years than most people who live to be 90 will do. Jaime Sue's love of food, especially eating out, was legendary. That detail made me chuckle. Her family said she chose quality over quantity, and that she also applied that not just to meals, but to friendships. The people in her life were her North Star. She also had a beloved cat named Roxy. And loved ones described Jaymee as full of acceptance, gentleness, purity, naivety, loyalty, and passion. They said she was an untroubled spirit who caused no harm and welcomed all. And that description, it affected me. It stirred a lot of thoughts and feelings as I looked at deeper motivations behind these murders. So hold on to that. I'll come back to that. Jaymee Sue had accomplished so much, and yet she was literally just at the dawn of her life when she was viciously taken from all those people who knew her, who loved her, and who were, of course, devastated by her loss, but better people for having known her. Now let's fast forward to the events that took these two women from their loved ones. In the early morning hours around 2 a.m. on Saturday, October 25th, Jacob Prichard drove from his home in Huber Heights, Ohio to the apartment of First Lieutenant Jaymee Sue Gustitus on Honeytree Place in Sugar Creek Township. This is where he fatally shot Jaymee Sue in her bed. Now, the 911 calls from neighbors are out there if you want to find them. Personally, I myself don't like to share 911 audio on this show unless the caller is the perpetrator and I'm trying to highlight their insincerity or just literally make fun of them. But otherwise, I feel like it can exploit the caller, someone who's already experiencing trauma themselves. So they're out there if you want to find them. But back to the timeline, multiple neighbors called 911 that night, and they reported Jacob outside Jaymee Sue's condo banging on the door and holding a gun. In fact, one neighbor poked their head out or saw him, and he said, "Get back inside, I have a gun." But somehow, he made it to the second floor and he breaks in. And police later discovered a ladder was propped up to the second floor balcony. And it's really unclear whether Jacob brought a ladder with him or it was just sitting there, very handy for access, but it raises questions. And well, honestly, I have nothing but questions about all of this, but we'll come back to that. So officers initially tried to make contact with anyone inside and they got no response. And according to neighbors, police were first there around 3:30 a.m. and they returned sometime after 7 a.m. And it's unclear when Jaymee was first discovered. but the coroner was called to the scene at around 10 a.m. And at the time they discovered her, Jaime Sue was totally unresponsive in her bed. She had been shot multiple times and was deceased. So I don't think even if they went in at 2 or 3 a.m., there was anything that could be done. The search warrant listed several items recovered from the scene. There was a broken screen with a possible bullet hole, 2 live rounds, and 5 spent shell casings, indicating Jacob fired between 5 and 7 shots inside Jaime Sue's condo. Now, after killing Jaime Sue, Jacob's next known whereabouts was the West Milton Municipal Parking Lot. And this is a government building. It's a place that is monitored. It's also a public exchange zone. There are cameras there. And this is where, once he arrived, Jacob would exit his car under lighting. He popped the trunk, and he took his own life next to that trunk, right at the foot of the vehicle, using his firearm. And now I've clearly left out the part about Jaymee Prichard being murdered, Jacob's wife, because the details surrounding her murder are still murky. Police believe Jacob either killed Jaymee sometime between late Friday, October 24th, the evening, and early Saturday morning before heading to Jaime Sue's apartment. And he actually placed wife Jaymee's body in the trunk of their car. And the details of how she was killed are not released. I didn't find those at this point. But he placed her body in the car. And what that means, if you're following the timeline, is wife Jaymee was in the trunk of that vehicle while Jacob was breaking into Jaime Sue's condo and carrying out that second murder. And that detail alone raises so many questions, including if Jacob brought the ladder himself, where did that get placed? Nothing but questions here. And not just about the ladder, but police confirmed that after killing Jaime Sue, Jacob drove directly to the municipal lot, meaning Jaymee was in the trunk throughout his entire crime spree. And in his final act, Jacob propped up the trunk of his car, like I said, and they believe he did that to reveal the body of his wife, Jaymee, so that she would be found quicker. Revealing her body, he left the trunk open, and that's when he stood at the back of the vehicle and took his own life. And that detail matters. It speaks to how deliberate all of Jacob's acts were. There were no mistakes or nothing done spontaneously here. Jacob chose a public location where he knew they'd be found quickly. He opened the trunk so police would discover Jaymee immediately. This wasn't done in a frenzy. It was calculated. Every move, the route he took, the placement of his vehicle, the timing, all of it was intentional. And law enforcement hasn't publicly released yet where wife Jaymee was killed. It's unclear if this was at their shared home. It's also unclear where their 3 children were during this entire crime spree. And wow, I have been so upset about this all week. I've had a lot of people contacting me about this, and it's just so senseless. There's no making sense of it. I want to talk about something that happens far too often in double murder suicides when a couple is involved. And people rush to fill in the blanks. They speculate it's human nature. They assign blame. They forget that this is multiple people's daughters, and they just jump to conclusions. And I saw it happen immediately here. Every Reddit thread, every Facebook post, every YouTube comment section, news articles, they're flooded with accusations. People claiming that wife Jaymee Prichard must have been having an affair with Jaime Sue, the 25-year-old female Jaime Sue. Others suggested that maybe Jacob was the one having an affair with Jaime Sue and wife Jaymee found out, or that Jaime Sue told her, or that it was some kind of love triangle. But the very first thought I had was, what if Jaime Sue was trying to help wife Jaymee leave an abusive relationship? And we don't know. But what I do know is this. The speculation about the cheating is not only baseless, it's dangerous because it shifts the blame onto victims, and nothing makes me angrier. Because let's just say for argument's sake, that wife Jaymee had been in some kind of emotional or physical relationship outside of her marriage. There's zero evidence of that, and I personally don't believe it. But even if she had been, that does not justify murder. That does not give Jacob Prichard the right to act as judge, jury, and executioner. It doesn't give him the right to end her life and orphan 3 children. And then go kill Jaime Sue. And we know that all 3 individuals worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We know they were acquainted. But beyond that, we don't know the nature of their relationships. And yet the internet is filled with people accusing these women, these victims, of infidelity. It's literally just Google their names and read some comments. And I want to be very clear, even if that were true, which again, we have no reason to believe, it would not validate what Jacob did. And I've seen so many comments also from people who knew Jacob, comments saying just nonstop, like, Jacob was always the nicest guy, or I knew Jacob, he must have just snapped. This isn't like Jacob. And let me just say this as clearly as I can. Nice guys don't do this. He may have been nice to you, but nice guys don't murder their wives. Nice guys don't kill their coworkers. Nice guys don't orphan their children. And if you held a magnifying glass up to Jacob and Jaymee's marriage, I'd bet anything you'd find signs of domestic violence. And I don't just mean bruises or broken bones, because abuse isn't always physical. It can look like jealousy, isolation, monitoring who she talks to, dictating what she wears, undermining her self-confidence, controlling how she spends money, picking fights that leave her sleep deprived and emotionally drained. That's called coercive control, and it's deadly. Because nice guys don't just snap and murder women. They don't. Anytime I hear somebody say, he was such a nice guy, she must have driven him to it, the cheating drove him to it, there's always at least coercive control as a predictor to murder. People assume that physical violence is the biggest red flag, but statistically, coercive control is just as dangerous. In fact, the most consistent predictor of intimate partner homicide isn't how often someone hits, it's how much control they exert. And yes, strangulation is another major red flag, but coercive control is present in every case where a woman is murdered by an intimate partner. And then I've also seen people speculating that Jacob must have had a mental health break, or maybe a mental health diagnosis like schizophrenia, like he just was delusional, he snapped. But I want you to look at his actions. To me, this wasn't a break. I mean, I'm not a mental health professional, but this to me was very clearly calculated. He planned the route. He brought a weapon. He couldn't get into the condo, so he obtained a ladder from somewhere. He was thinking, I guess, in the moment. He was methodical. He placed wife Jaymee's body in the trunk. He drove to a public lot and opened the trunk before taking his own life so that they would find them both. That is not the behavior of someone in a psychotic episode. That's methodical. That's premeditated. And the last thing I'm going to say about this nice guy myth, right? My husband, my forever husband, is a nice guy, the nicest guy. He's so kind. Everyone always says, wow, he's such a nice guy. I mean, make no mistake, he's strong. He's got a backbone, but he's a genuinely kind person. And if he came home tomorrow and he found out that I had betrayed him in the worst way, cheated with his best friend, his boss, his brother, whoever, he'd be devastated. He'd be furious. He'd divorce me, but he wouldn't hurt me. He'd sit down and say, how do we make this as painless as possible for the kids? Because that's what mentally stable people do. They do not kill their wives. And I want to shout this from the rooftops. There's no evidence that Jaymee Prichard cheated, or that Jaime Sue was involved, or that Jacob did. None. But I'm addressing this because it's the number one narrative that is out there, and it always is in cases like this, and it's wrong. Now, when Jaime Sue's family described her, I mentioned how this stood out to me earlier. They used words like innocence, purity, naivety, loyal. They made it clear that she lived by an oath to do no harm and that she welcomed everyone. I don't think it was by mistake that they put this in her public obituary. I think they want the world to know that she was of strong moral fiber. Her character wouldn't allow, these things. And so what I do believe, or what I guess I suspect, is that wife Jaymee may have been preparing to leave Jacob. Maybe Jaime Sue was helping her and encouraging her. That's speculation on my end, of course, but here's what we do know. Domestic violence always escalates when the abuser feels they're losing control. 75% of women killed by intimate partners are murdered while trying to leave or within the first year of leaving. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. We don't know the full story. We don't know the why. But I believe Jacob Prichard perceived some kind of betrayal, maybe not even a real one, maybe just the realization that his wife was done putting up with bad behavior, and that was enough. I've never heard of a man murdering his wife where control wasn't at least part of this story. So it seems to me he was going to lose control. So while we wait for more answers, I'll be thinking of Jaymee Prichard and Jaime Gustitus, two women who were adored, who were accomplished, who were loved, and who were taken. And more than anything, I'll be thinking of those three beautiful children who now have to grow up without the love of a mother or a father. And if you're listening to this episode on the day it drops, it's Halloween. I did see, Jaymee Prichard's obituary announcement I saw when the visitation to her was at the funeral home. And my heart breaks even more knowing that tonight, while other kids are out trick-or-treating, and it's a night that kids think about and dream of all year long, Jaymee's children will be saying goodbye to their mother at a funeral home visitation, a night that should be filled with costumes and candy and laughter and fun and all the best parts of childhood will now be forever just marred by grief. And Jaymee's children, I think her oldest daughter is around 11. Her younger ones look like they're like my kids' age, like under 5, 2 of them. And I just can't stop thinking about them. And it's just so senseless. Just get a divorce. My gosh. But God, those women deserve more. Those children deserve more. And for their older daughter who will remember this, her childhood ended last week when her father did this. And I will be holding her in my heart and my thoughts. And to Jaymee Prichard and Jaime Gustitus, your lives mattered. You were cherished. You were radiant. You deserved safety, joy, and time. And I will not stop speaking your names. I will not stop talking about domestic violence. I will keep educating, keep reaching, keep helping young people recognize the signs so that fewer lives are stolen and more stories are rewritten before they end. That will be part of your legacy. Rest now in light and in love. You will not be forgotten. And if you're in a relationship and you've ever said to yourself, well, he doesn't hit me, so it must not be abuse, I want you to ask yourself, can you spend money without asking permission? Does he belittle your appearance or make you feel like nobody else would want you? Does he isolate you away from friends or family? Does he control what you wear, whether it's pushing you to dress sexier or insisting you cover up? Does he always pick fights around sleep, interrupting your sleep, leaving you just emotionally exhausted and drained? Does he lock you out if he loses his temper? These are all signs of coercive control, and coercive control kills. Just because he hasn't hit you doesn't mean he won't kill you. Please get out. Be safe. You're not alone. Thank you for listening. Resources for domestic violence survivors are listed in the show notes. And if you are a veteran or law enforcement officer struggling with your mental health, please dial 988 and press 1.